When we say Salla, Salli, Sallu, or Salli, it is in the context of what? Salat. As a verb, that is the verbal form. So like I said, the mainstream Arabs, they gave us the name as to pray and to worship. So we are going to cross-check using the Quran. Since the Quran is the Al-Furqan, the criterion, we are going to use the Quran to analyze, is it correct or not? Good. So I break everything down. I took you to the context to explain to you how the context works. But then I found an interesting article. I came about some Muslims who are saying the Quran, the Salat means following closely. And they are giving it meaning. Some people will say commitment. Some people will say following closely. Now, when I did a background check, I found out that most of them are, the new followers of the Quran. And some of them are not actually deeply rooted in understanding the context of the Arabic language. But let me help you here. There is one guy called, I think Joseph Yassin, Joseph or something. He is saying the word salat, the verb is what? Salawat. That is a lie. He's misleading people with that. The Quran never used the verb as a salawat. No. I wish I can get him one-on-one. But then I came across an article. Somebody wrote how they got the meaning following closely. I wonder if it is a verb or a noun or an adjective. No idea, but I'm going to help you here. This article was written by Mansour Alam on the page called Islamicity, right? That is the source. Now this is what he wrote. I'm going to show you the contradiction on what the people who are saying Salat means following closely, right? I'm going to show you the contradiction plainly. He says the Arabic word Salat is normally translated as prayer in English. I'm quoting him, right? But the root meaning of Salat is to follow someone close. This is what he said. He says the root meaning. What do you mean by root meaning? How can I get a root meaning of something which is an action if I don't find a verb? So he says the root meaning is Salat, is to follow someone closely. This is the meaning he gave. I wonder which type of person is this, which Arabian is he. But I'll show you the contradiction, so have patience. Then he says, for example, in a horse race, if the second horse follows the first horse so closely that its head is always overlapping, which means the one following at the back, it's just coming to overlap a bit and go back, following, you understand? Then he says the first horse body, then it is called al-musalli. Listen, it's not saying God said this. He's quoting from another book, and I'll show you the reference of that book to show you that some for Quran alone followers are actually hypocritical. They are not believers in the Quran, actually. Good. So he says it's called al-musalli, and the first horse is called sabikun. Oh, al-musalli. So that is where you get your meaning. Then he got this, he quoted from this article, this book. He says, Taj al-Urus, volume 10, page 213. What is the name of the book? Lisanin al-Arab. Lisanin al-Arab. Then he says, volume 7, page 396. Mind you, the book was written in the year 1965. The book, when I made my research, the book was written in the year 1965. So this is where some of the Quran alone followers got the meaning of what? Salat as to be following closely. Deviation. Good. Remember when I quoted chapter 3 verse 7. فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ زَيْغٌ فَيَتَّبِعُونَ مَا تَشَابَهَ مِنْهُ ابْتِغَاءَ فِتْنَةٍ وَابْتِغَاءَ تَأْوِيلٍ. Those who have deviation in their hearts, they will follow what is similar. That is the word salah. They will follow what is similar. Then they will seek its meaning outside the Quran. So this person is saying the word salat means following closely based on a book he read, which is written in 1965 by somebody saying that when the horse race is going and you are behind it, the one behind the first horse is called al-musalli. So that's where they got the word Salat. I'm going to show you the contradiction. So he says in this sense, Salat means to follow Allah closely. So it means God is the Sabikun. I am the Al-Musalli. So I'm overlapping God like this. So that is following closely. I'm following God closely, right? That's how you got the meaning, following closely. I'm going to show you a contradiction. Then he says the Quran uses the term Akimus Salat quite often, which is usually translated as establish the Salat, establish the prayer. This translation does not fully convey the meaning of the original concept. Which concept? Original concept? This guy, is this serious? What is the original concept? Original means what somebody has, what God has already given you as original, not somebody else. We don't call that original. Because Salat is for God. Chapter 20 verse 14. Innani ala Allah la ilaha illa ana fa'abduni wa aqimus salat li zikri. Aqimis salat li zikri. Salat is for God. That is the original Salat. So if you say establishing the prayer, this translation does not fully convey the meaning of the original concept, then you said the root of Akimu comes from karma, which means to stand, to be balanced, to have just, fair, long-term strategy for dealing with problems, to be steadfast. No problem. That is your interpretation. Now, I'm going to show you the clear contradiction. According to chapter 34, verse 44, listen carefully. According to chapter 34, verse 44, this is what God said concerning the Arabs. Yes, Muktabul Hussein is also saying, somebody said to establish Wahi. No problem. Let them follow their opinions. Good. Like I said, the day I'll catch them one-on-one, they will explain to all of you on that day here. Chapter 34, verse 44. Listen carefully what God told the Arabs. وَمَا آتَيْنَاهُمْ مِنْ كُتُبٍ يَدْرُسُونَهَا وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا إِلَيْهِمْ قَبْلَكَ مِنْ نَذِيرٍ. We did not give them any books which they could study. That's the Arabs. If you say the original concept of Salat, which means there has already been a concept of Salat before God bringing a book and saying Akimus Salat. Do you see the point? When the guy was quoting, that's Mansur Alam, quoting from another book which is written in 1965, in the year 1965. And you are claiming the Quran came 1,400 years ago. So is it a book which is written in 1965, which will now explain an original concept which is ancient, starting from previous prophets? So chapter 34, verse 44. And we did not give them any books which they could study. That is the Arabs. God never gave them any book. If any Arab is listening to me here, apart from the Quran, if God has ever given you any other book to study, I'm here. Find me, type it for me, and show me which book did God give you, and prove your proof. Then God says, nor did we send any warner to them before you, Muhammad. God never sent any warner to the Arabs before Muhammad. Apart from that, God is asking them a plain question in chapter 68. I take you to chapter 68, verse 36 to 38. Surah Al-Qalam. Surah Al-Qalam. Let's see what God says. God says, "Ma lakum kayfa tahkumun? Am lakum kitabun fihi tadrusun? Inna lakum fihi lama takhayyarun." This is the Arabs. God is asking them a question. God says, how do you judge? Am lakum kitabun fihi tadrusun? Or do you have a book in which you study, or wherein you study? Inna lakum fihi lama takhayyarun. That you have therein whatever you choose or whatever you prefer. That's where you get your following closely. In the other Arabic books written for you to following closely. Is it a verb or is it a noun? Is it an adjective? What word is that? Following closely? Really? Okay, let's see. So since God never gave the Arabs any other book to study, which means Any book that God has given them has to be only the Quran. If it is only the Quran, that is the original concept of Salat. You can find there. You don't find it in any other book. So since we can find it in the Quran alone, that answer must not come from any other source. Is it someone's opinion you'll be taking as the meaning of Salat? Are you serious? Somebody's opinion who write a book and he said, oh, the Arabs used to call al-musalli, a horse following each other. Oh, seriously? So it means God is now the horse in the first race and we are overtaking him, overlapping. So we are the one following closely. No. I dare you, face me in a live dialogue and see how I will set you up as a scapegoat. Following closely. God gave you following closely. Good. Now, when you go to chapter 21 verse 7, to make this easier for you, chapter 21 verse 7, this is what God is telling us concerning the messengers who came before Muhammad. Chapter 21 verse 7. Suratul Anbiya. Let's see what God says in that verse. God says, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا قَبْلَكَ إِلَّا رِجَالًا نُوحِي إِلَيْهِمْ فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. And we did not send before you, Muhammad, except men to whom we inspired. So ask the people of the remembrance if you do not know. This you is in a plural form. Jam'u. It's not talking about Muhammad. It's talking about the plural form of people, that us. So ask the people of the remembrance. Who are the people of the remembrance? People who got the books before us. People whom God sent messengers before Muhammad. We should ask them if we do not know. So the hadithiyun, the hadith followers will tell you, first alu zikr here means go and ask people of knowledge. That is what the ulama of Sahih Bukhari. That is what they give the meaning to. That is a lie. It's talking about the previous messengers he has sent in the past. Their people. Go and ask al zikr. They received the zikra from God. So go and ask them. So if you claim Salat means following closely, and it doesn't mean I should establish a prayer, and you mean it means something else, have you forgotten that God sent messengers before and they all established Salat? You forgot. So why don't you go and check if there's any concept of Salat in the previous books or previous messengers and prophets he sent? Have you checked to actually see it doesn't exist? No, you didn't. And you took the Quran and follow your own opinion and assumptions and then created your own meaning. This is deviance. So I'm going to help you here. Good. So now when we go to chapter 41 verse 43, listen carefully what God told the messenger. He told Prophet Muhammad alayhi salam, he told him clearly that nothing that Prophet Muhammad brought to us is new. There is nothing that he brought to us in the Quran which is new. So I'm going to help you. Chapter 41 verse 43. God is telling him clearly, saying, Ma yuqalu laka illa ma qad qila li rusul min qablik. Then he says, Inna rabbaka lazu maghfiratan wa zu iqabin ali. What does the verse mean? The verse says, nothing was said to you, Muhammad, except what was already said to the messengers before you. So this is why God says, go and ask the people of Zikr, Al-Zikr, if you people don't know. So the Al-Zikr, they God sent messengers to them. They already have statements from God. So there is nothing Prophet Muhammad will bring as a messenger to us which is new. And then you come and say following closely. It doesn't mean we've lost the meaning of Salat. It's there clearly. I'm going to help you today. And you see it for yourself. You understand? Good. So now, since now the Quran gives us the guidelines to understand that every word we find in the Quran, God is speaking. It's not a new word for you to go and disturb yourself asking Arabs for the meaning, when God is already only confirming what was before it. According to chapter 46 verse 12 and chapter 10 verse 37, God is confirming what was before it only. So now, I've broken it down to show you, Salat doesn't mean any following closely. Take it out. God never gave you that thing.